The most hated Cartoon Network shows ever. Talk to me. I like Cartoon Network. That was me though.
From the upcoming Cartoon Network series,
here's the annoying orange.
You know, on second thought, this—
Yo, the annoying orange is so fucking shocked. But I did not like that show. That show was so bad. Oh my god, I forgot about that shit. That shit's so ass. Oh my god. Yo.
might have been a sign of the end times. Hated Cartoon Network shows.
Yo.
This was depressingly easy compared to the Disney video, actually. After Nickelodeon fell off a cliff going into the late 2000s, Cartoon Network kind of claimed its place as the go-to cartoon channel on television, and they definitely had the catalog to support that claim. The other channels just couldn't compete. Like, sure, Disney and Nick both had their standout shows during the 2010s, but nothing could really get on CN's level when it came to having a consistent output of bangers. However, that's not to say Cartoon Network didn't have a number of missteps throughout this era, because—
Brand new Ben 10 starts Saturday the 8th.
Okay. Wait, what Ben 10 is this, my nigga? The fuck? When was he a little jit like this? This don't even look like the Ben 10 I remember.
of October at 10.
that's not my baby.
People have talked about all of these shows at length for years now, and just like the last video, I don't want to use this video as an excuse to just parrot information and opinions that have been floating around the internet for the past decade. No, I want to actually take an honest look at some of CN's most hated shows and see if my own thoughts have changed on any of them, or if they really deserve the intense backlash they received in the first place. Now, I would first like to address the criteria for what makes a show hated, because even though I kinda did it last time, I still had a shocking number of people acting really surprised that certain shows were featured in the video. Basically, if a show has received a noticeable amount of backlash in the past, no matter how justifiable you personally think it may be, that counts as it being hated by a large group of people, or at least a loud group of them. However, this doesn't mean that a show that's overall poorly received can make the cut. Hate can mean a lot of things online, but I'd rather attribute it to hyperbolic backlash and anger rather than simply disliking something. This is why you'll see Steven Universe later in this video, even though the reception towards it is positive overall, because the hate towards it is just that loud. Now, before anyone asks, no, I will not be talking about the embarrassing CN Real era, where they began making a bunch of live-action shows that almost killed the channel, because I think they stray too far from being considered Cartoon Network shows, despite them being some of the most universally despised shows to ever grace the network. I also just think they're really low-hanging fruit, and there isn't really much to talk about beyond reality show bad. Anyway, I hope that's all crystal clear. Let's get on with the video. Oh, by the way, speaking of low-hanging fruit,
the Reboot Squad? The fuck is that?
Okay, just to get all of these out of the way, I'm bunching them all up together, because it wouldn't be a proper video about hated Cartoon Network shows if I didn't talk about them in some capacity. Teen Titans Go, Powerpuff Girls 2016, Ben 10 2016, and Thundercats Roar. The unholy quadrilogy of internet seething. You will be hard-pressed to find any Cartoon Network shows more hated than these. Now, I've already stated multiple times how I don't think Teen Titans—
Yeah, I don't really like— y'all already know how I feel about Teen Titans Go, bro. It's just not for me, bro. I heard the shit funny, but nah, bro, that's not how I remember, like, Teen Titans. Teen Titans was badass, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. But, like, this shit, like, nah, this is for, like, little kids shit. I mean, but they both for little kids. But, like, this shit, that ass is for, like, Google Gaga ass niggas.
Go specifically is that terrible. Granted, that was before the diaper episode caught my radar, so thanks Teen Titans Go for making me look like a massive twat. But I've also made it clear that I think it's really odd that so many people choose to focus on and keep talking about these shows like they've just released and represent the downfall of Western civilization, especially when most of these shows are nearly 10 years old. Hell, the only one of these that's still currently going is Teen Titans Go, so at the very least I can understand why that's on people's minds. But these ended years ago. So with all of that said, let's just go through these one by one, and then we can move on to the actually interesting stuff. Teen Titans Go is a low-effort parody of the Teen Titans intended for kids, and doesn't try to be anything more than that. And from the episodes I have seen, which is roughly a quarter of the show, because have you seen how many fucking episodes this show has? The show has some really low lows and some shockingly high highs, but tends to just be really mid rather than bad. Not the worst thing in the world if you don't count the random fetish moments. I can't believe I missed these. Like, I haven't watched every episode of the show in order because I'm a grown man with better things to do with my life, but I literally had no idea half of this shit existed, and I'm willing to bet most of the show's haters didn't either.
When did this video come out? Probably a while ago. 2 months ago.
because the majority of them still focus on and complain about episodes from the show's first season and haven't watched beyond that. This show has just been casually getting away with murder
this show
for years,
basically
and
brain
no
rot.
one cared because the majority of the episodes were just painfully mediocre, and the devout haters of the show are just that fucking annoying.
Yeah,
the main
this
reason the
shit
show
brain
still
rot's
gets
fucked.
hate is, ignoring how much it takes up CN's schedule, is because of the episodes where the writers fire back at the show's haters, which I did previously say I liked on principle, because to begin with, the show was just literally an innocent parody of the Teen Titans that got an absurd amount of backlash, including death threats, and I liked how earnestly petty the clapbacks were. But the show is still making them to this day, mostly because the hate hasn't stopped, but I do think they should just lay off at this point. I can clearly see why people get mad at these episodes, but at the same time, it's been over a decade and you need to move on. The show is clearly not going anywhere, and the hate honestly just fuels its worst habits. Teen Titans Go is massively overhated, but it's still not very good. At least the movie's pretty good, so there's that.
There's a
Powerpuff
movie
Girls
for this?
2016 is actually not the worst thing to happen to the Powerpuff Girls
What
in
the
recent memory.
fuck?
Look, I know this wasn't an actual trailer, it was just to pitch the show to executives, but genuinely, what were they thinking? Powerpuff Girls 2016 is probably
what?
the CN reboot of the worst reputation overall. No, we're not talking
Chopped. But wait, there was a live action of Powerpuff Girls, or that? That's crazy.
about that, and I'm
my-
struggling to think of a
was
single
loud.
redeeming quality outside of the admittedly fantastic intro.
Was
The
going to
intro
be.
does
It got
not get
canceled.
enough
Oh,
credit.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
visually stellar, and the song is pretty good too. It unfortunately doesn't do a good job of representing the show at all. Okay, it, we're going to talk about Ben 10 and Thundercats reboots alongside Powerpuff Girls because all of these shows are shockingly similar, and I already spent a long enough time talking about Teen Titans Go. All of these shows are massive visual downgrades compared to the originals. The characters are flanderized, the shows have lost a lot of the original's bite and edge, and mostly just dumb everything down for kids, despite the original
Yeah.
shows all being made for kids while still being excellent, blah 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 blah. You've heard this before. Unlike Teen Titans Go, I find all of these shows to be almost completely terrible, and I completely understand why people dislike them and hate them. The only show I'd say got hated into oblivion and didn't really deserve all of it was Thundercats
I didn't even
which on
watch
its own
this
is a
shit.
very unimpressive series, but out of nowhere,
Thundercats?
it single-handedly kickstarted a discussion about the Cal Arts art style that people still talk about to this day. Like, people were complaining about this before Roar was announced, but it definitely seemed to kick the whole
Yo, that dead ass looks similar as fuck. I ain't gonna lie to you, that looked dumb similar. Like what?
hornet's nest. I won't deny that Roar is an ugly looking show, but the whole CalArts argument always seemed overblown to me, and it definitely didn't help that the whole controversy led to shooting threats being made to the school itself.
What?
Most of them were just jokes, but I don't think it needs to be stated that this is still a really f***ed up thing to do over a cartoon intended for children.
real,
the threats
though.
turned out to be harmless in the end, but I think this is still enough for me to say the backlash towards Thundercats Roar specifically was massively overblown. Overall, the reboot quadrilogy ruffled a lot of feathers for some perfectly understandable reasons, but the reactions towards a few of them were definitely overblown. Okay, thank God we are finally over these. Now I can finally talk about the rest of the shows on display. What's next?
Okay.
No, get me out!
I hate this show so much, bro. This shit's so chopped, bro.
The Geneva Convention.
Bro, who the fuck made this show and thought it was a good idea to have like actual faces on oranges and different type of fruits? This shit looks terrifying, bro. A stoner. Bro.
Conventions are international humanitarian laws consisting of 4 treaties and 3 individual protocols that establish international legal standards for
What the
humanitarian treatment in war. The singular term Geneva Convention colloquially denotes the agreements of 1949, negotiated in the aftermath of the Second World War, which updated the terms of the 2 1929 treaties and added 2 new conventions. The Geneva Conventions extensively define the basic rights of wartime prisoners, civilians, and military personnel, establish protections for the wounded and sick, and provide protections for
This
the
nigga
civilians
reading the
in and out of
whole
war zone.
definition.
This is the deciphered and uncomplicated way to describe how bad the high fructose Avengers of Annoying Orange is to the average person in the King's English. I still don't understand how the Annoying Orange of all things got a TV show on Cartoon Network. I get that back in the day the Annoying Orange was one of the most popular things on YouTube, and even today for a fad that died nearly a decade ago, it's still doing modestly well.
They
I really
still
hope that
going
whatever
with that?
executive saw this channel and decided it would be a great idea to contact the creator and turn it into a series has managed to get the help they desperately needed. Or they're dead, I'll take either outcome. I use this term a lot to describe certain things, but the Annoying Orange TV show is literally just a shitpost. But not a professional shitpost, because to be blunt, there is nothing professional about this show
Facts,
whatsoever.
this is
You know,
trash.
usually when things move on to television, they tend to get a larger budget or widen their scope. The Annoying Orange does neither of these things. The quality of the average episode of The Annoying Orange is on par with the YouTube videos which were made with nothing but Adobe Premiere Pro and some JPEGs. The only difference between the two is that now, instead of an episode being 3 to 5 minutes at most, each episode is now the standard 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
10 minutes of The Annoying Orange.
But how the fuck can you watch 10 minutes of this shit? this shit would give me, I'm losing chromosomes off this. How the fuck you watching this for 10 minutes?
For 2 seasons and 60 episodes. Ha, nice try, feds. I know a CIA torture method when I see one. No one above the age of 5 actually watches this willingly. It's a complete and utter assault on the senses made with literally no effort.
That's what I'm
I will always
saying.
respect Dane Bowe for respectfully chasing the bag with the annoying orange, especially when it began popping off on YouTube. They really did milk the absolute shit out of the series. But unlike a lot of people who milk their success dry, they were never an ass about it and just made a respectable living in peace. But the actual quality of the annoying orange itself is never gonna be in question. It's intentionally low effort, and while it may have begun as just a quirky web series, it very quickly began.
I mean, the thing is, if it's so low effort, it is making so much money for them. Yeah, why would you change it? Like, it's so low effort. They making a bag off of doing this shit. I mean, and they don't really see a future for it, so they probably not gonna put no effort into it. They just milk that shit till it dry out and die. But like, bro, this shit was ass. I don't know how the fuck people watching this.
And gearing itself towards kids exclusively, and I fully believe it was the precursor to the internet brain rot we're all accustomed to these days. And its existence on Cartoon Network is so confusing because Cartoon Network primarily targets kids aged 6 to 12, who may be charmed by the show at first, but there's only so much of anyone can take before changing the channel. The show was hated for many obvious reasons though, and I can't say it ever went too far or that the show didn't really deserve any of it. I get it's a bit of a meme to complain that the annoying orange is too annoying, but the standards for a TV show are way higher than something made for the internet, and the appeal of the annoying orange just doesn't translate beyond 5-minute intervals. The reason for the hate towards it were fairly straightforward, and it was really, really bad, and no one really took it too far beyond hating it for being bad. This is a very rare occurrence, honestly.
Johnny Test, W. Wait, you gonna say this shit got mad hate?
The Geneva Conventions define the rights and protections afforded to those non-combatants who fulfill the criteria of being protected persons. The Treaties of 1949. Okay, I'll cut the crap. Johnny Test used to be one of the most despised Cartoon Network shows of all time.
What? People used to hate on Johnny Test? Bro, Johnny Test was good. Nah, niggas gotta be smoking dick. There's no way. I love this show. This shit fire. That's what I'm saying. Who the fuck was hating on this show?
Seriously, I kinda went over this in my hated cartoon characters video, but the hatred people had in their souls towards Johnny Test of all things was actually insane. I was personally never a big fan of the show, despite how much I watched it back in the day, because I didn't know how to change the channel off of Cartoon Network whenever it played, but I was still really shocked to see how many people couldn't stomach the show whatsoever. Was the show really that bad? Well, given that today a lot of people tend to defend the show because it was part of their childhoods, there has to be something here that I'm not seeing, right? Okay, yeah, that was mid. I mean, I definitely have a much higher opinion of the show now than I used to, but it's still not great. One of the worst Cartoon Network shows ever, though, not even close. I actually found the first 3 seasons to not be that bad. Heck, I'd go as far as saying season 1 was fairly decent. I know a lot of people complain about the show being a poster child for cheap flash animation cartoons that plagued many networks in the late 2000s, but season 1 is actually hand-drawn and it really doesn't look that bad. The show also didn't feel nearly as hyperactive and irritating as it's renowned for being. None of the characters felt flanderized or unlikable. There was far less sound effect spam. Sorry to all the whip crack enjoyers out there. And it just didn't feel like the show was going through the motions or trying to be low effort. It's about the halfway point of the show that things start to take a turn for the worse. Given it could literally put out an entire episode with nothing happening and still rake in a ton of viewers. This is where everything people complain to you about the show comes into play. Worse animation, lame jokes, every character is irritating, especially Johnny, where it got to the point of unhinged people and DeviantArt drawing him getting his shit rocked. The pacing is absolutely insane, and the show is playing a billion sound effects a second to stimulate the viewer. And honestly, even as a kid, I found this to be way too overstimulating. People may meme on it nowadays, but
how's this way too over? Nah, nigga. Nah. That nigga, this shit, he bugging. This shit is not overstimulating, buddy. Like, this shit was just genuinely good, bro. Johnny's dead ass the GOAT. That nigga is tough, bro.
I could not stand the whip crack sound. I damn near developed tinnitus at the age of 6 thanks to this asshole. I think another big factor for why this show is so hated is actually a similar reason for why Teen Titans Go gets so much flack. It absolutely dominated CN's schedule for 9 years. This show was big in the late 2000s, and while I don't remember the schedule ever getting to a point as bad as Teen Titans Go, CN were determined to milk Johnny Test for all it was worth, and frankly, I don't blame people for getting annoyed. I know this show has a place in a lot of people's hearts, and I agree that the first 3 seasons really aren't that bad, but everything after that is so mentally draining that I don't blame people for calling it one of the worst shows on the network. And when the show is at its lowest, it truly can get close to that claim. Still though, seeing how hilariously angry and violent people got towards it online gives me the impression that some individuals are taking their issues with the show way too far, and should probably go punch a pillow instead of drawing themselves or other cartoon characters mangling a fictional child
I don't know about that opinion.
These are still some of my favorite images on the internet though. They're so fascinatingly bad and funny. I'm shocked that so many of them were drawn completely unironically. Last thing before we move on, I still have no idea if the people behind the show intentionally copied Green Day's American Idiot for the show's intro. Some people have claimed Green Day gave them permission to use the song, but I cannot for the life of me find a source that supports that. This has been driving me insane for years.
Bro, Green Day, fire band, my nigga. Fire. Don't care. What the fuck? My shit's muted.
Source that supports that. This has been driving me insane for years. I need to know the answer.
Emo Looney, hell yeah. Steven Universe. Look, I ain't tapped in with Steven Universe. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if this is a good show or not. I'm not really like tapped in for real. Rock out, dude. Hell yeah, bro.
Steven Universe is probably one of the most polarizing TV shows released in the past 12 years. It's as simple as this. You either love Steven Universe or you absolutely fucking hate it. I have never met someone who was completely indifferent on Steven Universe. It's always one of two extremes. The show is mostly positively received, but the negative reactions are abundant and are very loud. This show has been called all kinds of things. Good, bad, great, atrocious, masterpiece, the worst thing ever. It is far and away the only show you can barely find anyone talk rationally about online. I bet you're thinking I'm gonna pull the usual YouTuber, both sides actually. I think Steven Universe is okay. No. I like Steven Universe. I like it quite a lot actually. I like it for many reasons.
See, I can't even really say an opinion on it because like I don't watch this shit. And I don't know why I don't watch it. Maybe it's cause the animation, I ain't really fond of it. But I don't know, like, what's Steven Universe even about though? Fan base is OD. See, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what this show's about. Like, bro, I don't wanna be watching shows like that.
Reasons, most of which can be found in my retrospective on the show and are incredibly personal. Just a heads up, that video is a proper serious look back at the show and what it meant to me and my girlfriend, so I won't get into a lot of the serious details here because this video does not need that kind of tone change. But I have long since acknowledged that Steven Universe is a very imperfect show and one that mostly prioritizes making the audience feel things rather than making complete and total sense or being super well written. Doesn't mean its failings aren't worth criticizing though. There's plenty of things about Steven Universe you can critique successfully, but the reason it's maintained an active fandom all these years later is because, at the end of the day, if you're the kind of person who vibes with everything Steven Universe has on display, this show is going to emotionally grip you from beginning to end. It's the kind of show where you really have to be on its level to truly appreciate what it's trying to do and what it's trying to get you to feel. And I completely understand that some people just don't get to that point with this show. It's completely fine. There was a time where I fell out of love with the show and made a bunch of videos critiquing it, and admittedly it was because the show's writing started to get super rocky by the 4th season, and Steven Universe Future, while I like it now, was pretty divisive for longtime fans as well. But I gave it time, rewatched the show with my girlfriend, and now I mostly have positive feelings about it. Again, a lot of my appreciation for the show comes from how it emotionally affected me and not from its overall quality. There are two types of Steven Universe critics.
Like, is this show like, it get real deep at some points, I guess. What is this video about? The most hated Cartoon Network shows ever.
That just don't vibe with the show in general and critique nearly everything. Two types of Steven Universe critics. The type that just don't vibe with the show in general and critique nearly everything about it, or the type who used to be fans but fell out of love after the show's writing began to nosedive. Critiques of Steven Universe tend to be all over the place. There are plenty of extremely valid points about how flawed the show's writing is, as well as its handling of serious subjects, but then there's also a ton of misinformation spread about the show, and thankfully in recent years people have gotten more comfortable calling that kind of stuff out. Like, even big Steven Universe critics tend to agree that Lily Orchard's big Steven Universe review is just absolutely fucking terrible, and there are multiple videos ripping it apart. It's not hard to critique Steven Universe, but it's a show that some people also love to hate in stark contrast to the people that love it in spite of its massive flaws. This is all a long-winded and complicated way of saying, yes, I think the majority of hate towards Steven Universe is super overblown, but I also completely recognize and accept the majority of issues people have and even share a lot of them. It all comes down to the approach. I'll always love Steven Universe, and I'll always be able to value what it meant to me and how I learned to love it again at a crucial point in my life where everything was going wrong, and how it also taught me to love myself again, funnily enough. And I don't expect everyone to have the same experience at all. Seriously, it's a show that means many different things to many different people, and that's part of what I love about it. It's one of those rare shows where I can understand people who love and hate it while having my own reasons for valuing it so much. I get that a lot of people probably went into this section with the expectation that I do this massive epic takedown of the show, but I just don't have a reason to do that. And honestly, I respect that you don't like that. Hope this next part makes up for it.
Okay. Oh, what the fuck? The Problem Solvers. What? Yo, who the fuck made this show and got this dookie lookie ass looking character with a fat ass nose? Bro, is this supposed to be racist? Why he got popo lips? Oh, hell nah. This shit is chopped.
Problem Solvers.
What the
Sorry, I forgot I set this show's name as my voice activation passcode to open the gates of hell and vanquish the wicked. I think we're a bit ahead of schedule. I was originally going to wait for the next round of tariffs. Anyway, Problem Solvers is...
Bro,
okay, that one wasn't me. I wasn't aware that was such a common passcode. But this metaphor surely gives you a lot to think about, right? Ooh, a Twitter notification about the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's have a... Well, shit. Problem Solvers. This is one of the worst shows I've ever seen. Visually speaking, my eyes are burning. Though I did just open up a hell portal, so we'll see which one's responsible shortly. And the whole show is just boring.
This shit looked like brain rot. Like, but it looked like low effort brain rot. Like, this shit look, what the fuck? This shit look trippy. This shit look trippy as, like, you take, bro, let me chill.
Though I did just open up a hell portal, so we'll see which one's responsible shortly. And the whole show is just boring. For such a visually wacky and off-the-wall show, the writing really doesn't reflect that. I have no idea how this even aired on Cartoon Network. It looks like something that would be far more at home on Adult Swim.
Bro, this definitely look like this should be on Adult Swim. What the fuck is this shit? This shit looks so chopped.
But even that's insulting to Adult Swim's quality control. The main issue here is how the show looks, because it's pretty much unwatchable.
So
if you know anyone who has epilepsy, keep them far away from the show. I don't even have epilepsy. Okay, yeah, it was the show that caused my eyes to combust. We can rest easy now. I don't even have epilepsy, and I feel like staring at this show for too long will result in me having a seizure. Do not watch Problem Solvers. That's all I have to say, honestly.
Yeah,
well,
you
nothing
can't watch
happened
that.
when I said it this time. I think this might be a good sign.
Uncle Grandpa, I've seen this, but I was never really tapped in with this shit. This shit kind of look goofy too. I was never tapped in though, but I could be wrong.
I have already talked about Uncle Grandpa before, so I'll be paraphrasing a lot of what I said in my overhated cartoons video. Thank you, bye. Alright, this is probably the most confusing show on this list, because even though I was told for years that Uncle Grandpa was some sort of awful, random equals funny cartoon that was hyperactive and annoying to a fault, for the longest time I always thought Uncle Grandpa was pretty funny.
What?
I really struggle to see why the show was so hated. I guess it was because of the time it came out more than anything. It debuted the same year as Teen Titans Go and lasted until 2017, which was sort of the peak of angry rant YouTubers talking about cartoons. And given Uncle Grandpa's sense of humor is incredibly stupid, charming, but stupid, it wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea, and it was labeled one of the worst Cartoon Network shows. I do believe it was a case of Uncle Grandpa being far ahead of its time, because these days you're gonna find a lot of people who treat the show as a guilty pleasure or just outright say it was good.
Not gonna lie, look kind of funny though.
History and a lot of hated cartoons with varying results, but Uncle Grandpa really seems to click with a lot of people now. It is technically a random equals funny show, but I'd say the humor is far more on the surreal side than just being a case of them throwing everything at a dartboard and hoping for a lucky shot. And that really clicks with me because a lot of my favorite things happen to be surreal comedies. It's not like the show is annoying or that overbearing. It clicks with me because a lot of my favorite things happen to be surreal comedies.
Bro, Xavier, bruh. This nigga, chop by the way, but I used to watch this shit. This shit was freaky as hell, bro. This shit was scary. That shit was on Adult Swim though. That shit was, yo.
It's not like the show is annoying or that overbearing either. It's incredibly zany and cartoony, but I don't see much here that would annoy people. I maintain the stance that if Uncle Grandpa was some niche animated series on YouTube or Newgrounds, it would not have the reputation it has today. I do think the time the series debuted had a massive part to play in how well it was received, and judging by how many people today really vibe with it, it's not much of a stretch to say it was truly ahead of its time. Alas, we will never see Uncle Grandpa again, and that makes me really sad. I don't think it's a stretch to say that the show was massively overhated. It just needed to find the right audience to appreciate it. And that's a wrap. Those were some of the most hated Cartoon Network shows ever. There were definitely some
okay, man, W video, Genki.